Now this is just an old rusty chime that was hanging at my mom and dad's house, and it was there for years and years and years. It doesn't look like much. It's made out of steel, but it makes a beautiful sound, and I have a lot of good memories about it. And we had to just put that orange disc on there because the old one broke off. Have you ever heard of leather and lace or chuck some pearls? Well, I'm going to use rhinestones and I'm going to bling out a disc that I cut in my glow forge to hang down. So I'm going to leave it steel and rustic, but my little chime dangle is going to be rhinestones. So I'm going to call this Rust and Rhinestones. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut an acrylic disc out with my glow forge, mix some glitter with some best uni resin, coat it, then put the rhinestones on the top. All right, here's what the acrylic looks like after it's cut out. So we're just going to push that out. Okay, so I want to go ahead and peel off the masking from this, at least one side. Now this acrylic comes pre-masked, so you don't have to mask it yourself. Then I'm going to use some glitter and some resin. So I want to go ahead and put this on a little silicone mat. I'm going to use these rainbow rhinestones on my little chime dangle. Now on my tumbler, I had already mixed up some glitter, and so I have a little bit of that left, but I'm going to add to it. So here's what I had left. This is just a mixture of pink, gold, blue, and green. And I used those colors because they mixed in well with this. So I'm going to put a little bit more of each of those colors in there. Now I have this set, and it gives you just about any color you'd ever want, but you don't have to spend that much money on glitter. For example, I got this at the Dollar Tree store. Those are some beautiful colors. And then the glitter in this little container, I also got this at the Dollar Tree store. So it's little packets of various colors. Okay, so the colors I used before were this pretty kind of neon color pink, and the gold, a little bit of blue, and then lastly, a little bit of this green. And it doesn't take much. You can see these are still pretty much full. Now that's the color we got. I think I need more gold in that, so I'll just add some more of that in and we'll be ready to move on. All right, that's going to work just fine. Now for my base coat here, I'm going to use the resin and the glitter, and then I'm going to put the rhinestones on top of it. So I have my best uni resin, and I have a little medicine cup. I got a bunch of these off of Amazon, and they're not real thick. They're nice thin. You're going to dispose of them anyway, so you don't want a lot of plastic going into the landfill. And we'll start with about that much resin. I don't know how much it's going to take. I can always add to it. Now this resin stays very workable until you put it under your UV lamp, or you put it outside to dry in the sun or to cure in the sun. All right, going to put quite a bit of glitter in there. I may add more, we'll see. The thing is, when you put this glitter in resin, oh my goodness. Look at those colors. Now they kind of change, and I want a little bit more gold in there. I want this to be bright and sparkly. Right now it looks kind of dark. Now the majority of it will be covered up with rhinestones anyway. This is just a nice backdrop. Okay, I'm going to go with that. I think that'll be fine. Now I'm just going to dump some of this on, and it is liquidy. So I can let it sit here for a few minutes so that it kind of self-levels. All right, to spread that out, I'm just going to kind of use this. I do not need a thick coat of this. Again, I really just want a nice little glittery backdrop for my rhinestones. Now, until you put this under your UV light, I think I already said this, but if I didn't, this is going to stay really pliable. So you don't need to rush through this at all. Now I'm trying to go up to the side but not have it fall over the side. So I'm going to kind of feather this out, make it a little bit thinner on the edges. Alright, so here's my UV light, and it's just a nail lamp. I got it off of Amazon a long time ago. Now I know the Best Uni used to sell some lights and lamps also. I don't know if she still does, but I am going to go ahead and link to her shop in case you want some of this resin. It works very well. Alright, so I'm just putting this under there, and I'm leaving the popsicle sticks under it to keep it level. Now I have multiple settings here, and it's upside down, but it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and then a low heat mode for 99 seconds. I'm going to go with 60, and then after I do it the first time, I'll do it a second time. Now, if it weren't night, I'd probably set this outside for about 10 minutes just to give it some extra curing time. I want to touch it to make sure it's ready. Okay, that's good. And that's pretty. Look how pretty that is. And look how smooth it is. I think that turned out great. So that's what it looks like from the back side. So if I wanted to make sure it was really cured, which it feels very nice, but once this is hard, I could always put it back under upside down so the light gets to the back side of the resin. I'll do that just for 30 seconds. Okay, so we are done with this. It is ready. It looks beautiful. So let's move on. All right, let me catch you up to speed. I've gone ahead and glittered both sides using this UV resin and glitter. And I actually did this 2 days ago. I took yesterday off, but I want to show you this. See how this UV resin is still liquid? I don't want to drip it, but there you see it coming down. You can work with this for a very long time. It's going to stay pliable and workable until you put it under that UV lamp or you take it outside. So for projects like this, it's a great option. So before I start putting this on my project, I like to make sure that it's just coming out well. All right, that's fine. And the first row that I'm going to do on this dangle is the outside row. And I want to go ahead and start by the hole because I want to line one up perfectly with that hole. So I'm going to place just a thin line of glue toward the outside, And I'm going to go about a quarter of the way around. Now for this project, clear glue is hard to see on that glitter. So maybe super tight would have been a great option. Or maybe gem tack would have been a good option because they go on white. Then they just dry clear. But I'm going to stick with the one I've always used. All right, so first one I want to do, like I said, is just straight above my circle. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of these on, like I said, about a quarter of the way around. And I want them to touch each other. I want them to be close to the edge. But because I'm able to work back, or because this glue is going to stay workable for at least 5 minutes, if not more, first thing I want to do is just get them on there. Then I'm going to come back and move them where I want them. So I'm not going to be too picky this first time around. I'm just going to get them on my substrate. And the reason I'm not going to be too picky the first time is because as you put these on and you bump them up against each other, they shift anyway. So I might as well wait until I'm a quarter of the way through it and then go back and adjust. Now I can't see, okay, looks like I have enough glue for about 3 more. We're just going to go with 2 more. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to use this thumb and make sure they don't go over the edge, and then I'm going to use my other thumb and just kind of push up against my outside thumb. All right, so that's what I have so far. Then before I move on, for example, there's a pretty good size gap right there. And I know with this glitter it's hard to see, so you might just have to trust me. But before I move on, then I want to go back and move them so they're all touching. And again, I'm going to use my thumb as this guide. All right, so I'm just going to repeat this process 3 more times until I get all the way around. Then after I'm all the way around, I'm going to let this sit for at least 30 minutes. I want it to dry. It's not going to cure in 30 minutes, but it will be set so that when I do the next rows, just like on this tumbler, I did the first row, I let it sit for 2 hours, then I could really push the stones up against it. So the same thing on this, I'm going to do the first row, let it sit for at least 30 minutes. Then I know they're good and set. I can push my next rows up against it, and I know that's not going to push them over the edge. So I'm going to zip through this, and we'll catch up later. All right, so we're getting to an important part right here, and that's the last couple of rhinestones. Now, I've been placing the rhinestones as tightly as I can against each other. It looks like I have room for 1 more here, and then there will be a little gap. So once I do that, if there is a gap, I'm going to try to space out the gaps amongst the last 5, 6, 7, 8 rhinestones. Okay, so before I break away and let this dry, I want to go back and just kind of press straight down to make sure there's a good bond between the rhinestones and the blank. Now this glue is so fresh that I'm going to wait about 5 minutes, Then I'll press down on the rest of those. And then, like I said, I'll give it at least 30 minutes of dry time. All right, I've waited a little over 30 minutes, and I want to show you something that I learned. So here's my picker-up tool, and it had a divot on the very tip, because when you poke so many rhinestones and then place it, it just had a divot there. So it was like sunken in, and it wasn't picking up rhinestones very well. So what I did was I took a lighter and I just kind of twirled this around over the light or over the fire, and then I held it like that so that it would come down this way. Then after I knew it was not super hot anymore, I just kind of took my fingers, rubbed around, and formed it. So I'm back to having a slight point, and I'm good as new. Hopefully, I haven't used it yet. Now on the second row, and I'm just going to start, and then again I'm going to fast forward, because once you get going it's the same thing over and over until you get to the middle. So I'll start this row, talk to you for a minute, then I'm just either going to fast forward or fade out and fade back in, and then show you the rest. But I want to talk to you, whoops, got to take that pin out. I want to talk to you about why I let these set up, and just really give you a visual on why I did that. I'm going to put down enough glue just for about 10 rhinestones, probably less. Now, just like on the tumbler, after that first row's set, on the next row, you can really press these over against the outside row. That way you know you're going to fit as many as possible on here. You're just really pressing them together to maximize the number of stones you can get on your blank. Now the other thing, well, let me get these 6 or 7 on here. Thought I had enough for 10, but there's not going to be any way I'll fit 10 on here. But I don't want my glue to start drying. Okay, so I put them on, and then I'm just going to kind of press with my fingers. Whoops, I press so hard that I press that one over the top. I can be a little heavy-handed once in a while. Not usually, but once in a while. Okay, this wax tip's not as good as new, but it's better than it was. Okay, so I'm pressing these kind of down and out. And there's what we have. Now I want to show you something. On this tumbler, because the first row and the second row and the third row, it's all the same distance around. Those are going to fit in perfectly. So you're going to have the same number of rhinestones on every single row. You're just alternating where they go. Second row's between the two first row, third row then you go back to where the first row was. Well, on this, the outside row has much more room than the next row. So I'm not going to be able to fit as many rhinestones in the second row, and I'm not going to have a perfect fit between the stones of the first row because there's less room. It's still going to look great, but that's a good reason why to use something behind it, because you just are not going to be able to avoid gaps unless you use a lot of teeny tiny rhinestones to fill those in, which I'm not going to do. That's the purpose of my glitter. All right, so I'm going to continue. Again, once I get to the inside, I'll be back. Now that I'm running out of room in the middle, and I'm not going to be able to fit them as perfectly, I'm just going to put as many stones in there as I can. Then once I get as many as I can in there, I may move them around to space them out more evenly. But I'm not going to be too picky about the inside of this. It already looks gorgeous, and it's just not that important that they're perfect. You have that glitter back there, you're going to space them out, and they're going to be perfectly imperfect. All right, I think I have room for one more right there, and I can't get it quite all the way down, so I'm going to be pushing out on the ones around it. Uh-oh, got an extra stone on top here. All right, so I'm just going to be kind of pushing out gently. Keep dropping that stone. All right, pushing out gently to make room for the last stone. And you're going to make sure that you don't have any of them angled up on top of the one beside it. And the way I can do that is I can hold it up so that it's even with my eyes, and I can look across it. And I think that looks pretty good. Now the beauty of these stones is they're color shifting. And so as you turn, it reflects different light. Now I used quite a bit of glue on this. I used a lot more glue on this than I did on this, because this is up close and personal. I see it right in front of my face. This is going to be outside, hanging under a tree. It's going to get more wear and tear. It's going to have the rain, the sun. So I wanted to make sure I had quite a bit of glue in there. And as long as I don't cover over the tops of these stones, they're still going to be really super shiny and beautiful. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clean up and such, and then in about 5 minutes, I'm going to push straight down on the last of those stones just to make sure they're really embedded down in that glue. I guess Mother Nature likes it. She brought up a lot of wind.